So welcome everybody. So we're going to spend a little time talking about how to building AI agents into teams, what it takes, how you can do it, and what to consider. So my name is Heidi Christensen. I'm partner in BestBrains Academy, and together with me today, I have Jesper, also partner in our company. What we want to take you through here is a little bit of exploration about what it takes to use and to build AI agents into a team. Then we will talk a little bit about an AI agent. What is it and what is it not? And then we will have an example. Jesper will do a little demo of what we're trying out right now, what we're using. Then we will talk about context and why that is important to set. Tiny bit around security and also being aware of the AI Act from EU.
So AI agents in teams, well, how could that look? Well, we're assuming here that we have a cross-functional team of perhaps developers, testers, product owners, and stuff like that. We that have been working with Agile for many years, we know this setup pretty well. The good question here is, what do we experience if we introduce AI in this team? There's a lot of potential benefits, I think, for introducing AI. We can improve how we solve tasks, be more efficient and high quality. We could add new skills to the team. Perhaps if we don't know a lot about security, we can get help for that. And we can also use it for development of our team. It can help us coach us, perhaps also help individual members with development or the whole team. There's a lot of different areas where we can introduce AI. We have a demo for that and some thoughts about how that could look, because it has some interesting effects when we talk about introducing agents, not just AI, because we are used to working individually with AI and with a chatbot, for example. What is an agent? And it's not necessarily the same as how we use AI today. To answer the question, what is an AI agent? It's perhaps even easier to say what is not an AI agent, because the way you use AI today with a chatbot, ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot, or whatever, we wouldn't really call that an agent because it's more assistance in our own work, and we are in the loop all the time. We can also begin embedding AI in business processes, and we can see that, of course, more and more. For example, if we're an insurance company and we have a customer, they have a new claim, perhaps they have some snow damages after the hard winter here in Denmark, we could get an AI to look at this claim as the first part. And AI is really good at large data and rules, a lot of rules. So they could give the input for this claim in terms of, well, would we pay out or would we ask additional questions about the claim? So an AI could make an AI assessment of this claim and probably give it to some kind of employee that then would approve this claim. And then the customer receives response about the claim. And the good question here could also be, does the customer know that AI has been involved in this? Would that be a good practice, for example? Again, we wouldn't say that this is an agent, but it could be a step towards giving these AI more autonomy. And that's kind of the movement we are seeing here, that we are giving more and more autonomy to these AI, you can say AI systems. And if you work with a chatbot today, you can also give it tools now. It can do things for you. It can look into your mail. Perhaps it can also create mails. And this development is moving really fast. So perhaps we are also moving a little bit towards agents with the chatbots that we are using. We would say that an agent has more autonomy than the traditional chat interfaces and AI embedded in workflows. We are thinking here that we are beginning to see a digital colleague emerging from this technology, you could say. So imagine an example here where an agent can place new orders on its own when the inventory is running low without any human intervention. So that has consequences for the company, but it could be that an AI agent is actually even better than a human to figure out what new goods to buy to our inventory. And it could also be that it serves customers without any human involvement. Refunding orders, for example, based on a dialogue with the customer. So the customer writes an email, say, I want this order refunded. And if we trust the AI agent enough and it knows what to do, then it can refund an order. But that has influence on the company. So this is what we are thinking about AI agents. It could also be kind of a move towards more and more autonomy. It looks like that's the pattern we see in how we begin using these AI tools for other things than just chat. If we have a traditional chatbot over here, we talk back and forth. We are in the loop all the time. But if we talk about an autonomous agent, then it has its own place to live, you could say. And that will typically be some kind of virtual machine, but it has file systems. It can execute commands on the computer, and it can also communicate with you, but perhaps also with the outside. And that's kind of new because the agent part here is individually for the individual agent. So it has perhaps full control over file systems. Of course, we can set the control in terms of what they can execute. And that is becoming more and more important, ensuring that it cannot do too much. The skills that we give to this autonomous agent is really important. How we think about these skills and how we build them and how we secure these skills. We have a small demo here about our own agent, and that is based on an open source project called Openclaw. Perhaps you heard about it. A really interesting story because it's one of the fastest growing repositories in GitHub where we have open source frameworks that we can share with each other. And it started a little more than a month ago in the end of January, where a developer, he put out a new repository with an AI agent. From here, it just took off like nobody has ever seen before in GitHub. And at the moment, we have 240,000 stars or likes in GitHub. It's open source and you can download it and install it, but don't install it on your own computer because pretty quickly they also discovered some security issues, not the software itself, you could say, but how people use it. And what ecosystem this Openclaw agent is living in, because quickly they also created an ecosystem where they could talk with each other and you could download things to your own AI agent. So we'll also talk about security because security is really becoming important when we move towards something that is more autonomous. And everybody has to think about security. We'll make a short demo of how this could look. We have installed one in a virtual environment in the cloud, and we called it Bye. We can talk with it through Slack, which is our preferred way of talking together in the company, but we have given it access to Slack, and we have some topics where we talk about different things. And here we talk about how we set up this agent here. And I will also try to talk with it a little bit and see what we can get it to do. In Slack here, I will just mention it. Here we have a small job here for that. And we talked about yesterday with Bye about doing an AI research job on a schedule. We tried it out a little bit. I think it's a good idea. So now I asked it to set up an AI research schedule with a short summary of relevant news from the AI industry and put it into a schedule every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 8 o'clock. The summary must be in Danish and posted on a specific channel here. And this is a way of chatting with our new team member, you could say, Bye. And it's actually a good way to talk with an AI because Heidi can see it and our colleagues can see it, and we can make threads instead of chatting individually. And it also has its own workspace. So it has file access. It can create files. You can also see here, it's actually referencing files, and that is on its own file share. And it can do things. We also gave it tools, but we are also very careful about what we allow this Bye to do. Well, the experience is that from the last month, that sometimes it does things that, well, we haven't explained good enough. And perhaps it's kind of filling out the blanks and assume things that are not always what we wanted. It also takes some time. So often, if you give it a more complex task like this, we can also return here a little bit later and see how it's going. I would like also to share how the architecture behind this agent is set up. That is actually a good picture of what it requires to make an AI agent. You don't have to use Openclaw. You can also make your own AI agent. But the architecture behind Openclaw is pretty simple. And the first thing is memory. An agent needs memory. And in this case, it has several types of memory. It has its own identity and personality, also called the soul of the AI agent. It knows something about you or your team. It has long-term memory. It has a heartbeat on what to do and when. It also logs everything that it actually does throughout the weeks and days. And you can also control this memory. You can look into it. You can ask it to update memory or create memory. And then it also has a heartbeat. And that kind of brings the AI agent alive, you could say. It wakes up perhaps every 30 minutes. It can initiate tasks you asked it to do, send notifications to Slack channels, for example. So this is a way of giving it autonomy to do things that it has to do. And then it has channels where it can talk with typically humans, but it could also talk with other AIs actually. And we have set up a Slack channel for that. And skills and tools are the way we give it power to act. This is where security is extremely important. You can download a lot of community-built skills and tools, but be careful with that because it could have malicious code in it. So what we have done is that we have made our own tools by coding it, made a small Google Doc tool where you can create Google Docs, but you can give it tools to do whatever you want, read emails, generate reports, buy items, for example. We haven't done that yet. This is where we give it power to act. And we can also build workflows into this agent. So a good way to start with an agent is not to just allow it to do anything, but building small workflows is a way to control what is it allowed to do and how do we do it. So that is also what we have done, build workflows, and you can get help from that from coding agents. So we can step by step give it more and more autonomy and more power to act. Let's see here. It says it's created a new AI research job and it's focusing on news and stuff like that and on timing. I'm also a little bit interested about how it created this setup. So let me ask about that. As you can see, it's talking in Danish, and that's because we actually have asked it to talk in Danish. So now I ask it to explain the setup in the workspace and create a Google Doc with that information. And let's see what happens when it returns with that.
So maybe worth mentioning, like Jesper said, we could have asked it also to answer in English if we write in English. Those behaviors and requirements we put up, we have in another channel so that it's visible for all of us what we tell our colleague agent to do and behave. So again, it's really nice. It's not something Jesper does in the background somewhere over in a hidden file, but we have put it in so it's visible for all of us so that we know what we have set up as expectations.
So that is part of the memory here. So the memory is important and the identity of this AI agent. What is the expectations? I think it's still working, but perhaps we can move on. So how is it to introduce an AI agent in a team?
Exactly, because we suddenly got a lot of learnings about, okay, we need to be clear and know what we want to do to make sure that we are sharp on it. And it got us reflecting on what do we normally do when we onboard a new colleague or a new employee. We need to know what's the purpose, what's the goal, why are you here, what competences do you have right now, and do we need to introduce you, to train you to things? What are you allowed to do? And also agree on what is your scope of action, what can you do on your own, when do you need to get acceptance or review from someone else. So basically all of these setting the boundaries and explaining, agreeing on how we follow up together so that we don't just have a new employee go work and expect miracles to come out of that without setting any directions. All about this autonomy and agency is not just given automatically. It's something we build up exactly like Jesper was just showing you here with our AI agent, that we also gradually allow things and shape how we want it to be. Looking at it in that way, it's something probably a lot of you are used to, getting new colleagues once in a while. And the same here goes with an AI agent that we also need to onboard, because The agent can take initiatives, choose to do some actions and execute. So we really need to frame it and make sure that we're clear on what is the goal, what decisions are allowed to be made and executed on, what accesses and tools. And that's where the whole security in red comes in. We really need to shape that in a way where it's transparent, where we can all look into what are you allowed to do so it doesn't become a black box, so that we continuously have the awareness of that. And then also how to monitor and evaluate. So how do we know how you're doing? And that's what we encounter as well with our partner now, that sometimes it does different things. So we need to be able to have insights into what's going on. So talking about context engineering is becoming really important to set the right context up so that we know how we can design all these boundaries that we have. Thinking of the AI agent as our new digital employee that we really need to onboard and make sure that we help and inform and shape in a way where it becomes a help for us, so we don't end up spending a lot of time on things that are not that useful for us. A little bit of context engineering to help us frame what is it we need to remember when we set up our agent and work with our agent. One of the things is we really need to set the context of how we want the agent to operate, meaning what should it achieve and how is it allowed to decide things, when do we need to be in the loop as humans before it executes, and in general, where do we put in the control. So all of this trying to say this doesn't just come out of a box, but something that we need to consider, agree about, and define for the agent. Because if we don't do it, then the agent could optimize the wrong things. I'm sure you've also experienced it when you've been using a chatbot maybe, and it comes suddenly out of hallucinates or starts coming with different answers than you expect it to do. The responsibility can become unclear. What are you actually supposed to do? What are you allowed to do? And then we don't have a frame for how we handle risks. It can become uncontrolled of how the agent works. So that is for some of the reasons why we really need to be aware of all of this, because AI rarely fails because of the intelligence or because of the possibilities, but it fails because of missing structures and context. So if we think of the context in 3 levels, so if we have the strategical level, why and how far you're supposed to go, the tactical, how do we collaborate, what is the framing for that, and then the operational, what does the agent have access to? All of this is interconnected, and if some of the levels are missing, then friction will occur because we might have said where we want to go, but not what is the boundaries, how are you supposed to access the data, for example, that you need. So a little bit on these 3 levels just for inspiration. So if we talk about the strategical context, so what is the agent's purpose? What role does it play? So good questions to ask yourself, just as if you want to hire a new employee. What is it actually we're looking for here? What are the success criteria? What is the risk tolerance? What are you allowed to do? And what must you never do? So some of these questions are good to work together on and define and set up, so it becomes clear in the context for an agent or for a colleague of any kind. And then more on the tactical context, where do we place the control? When should we be involved as humans? When is it okay for an agent to act on its own? And when should escalation occur? And who has the final say in which cases? This is where we really look into on the tactical level on where do we place in control so that we can get more and more benefits out of all of this. And then on the operational context, it's very much on the tooling side as well. What data is the agent allowed to use and access to systems? What kind of permissions in the systems? And what is stored and for how long is also a good question to ask ourselves. And what is logged? And a good rule of thumb is log everything. So what do we actually give the access for? And that's also one of the things in our Slack channels, that it's clear for all of us what accesses have we given to our AI agents, so it does not become something that we cannot all have awareness of. And that goes also hand in hand with memory. And I could pick a lot of different topics, but memory I just wanted to mention because it's really becoming a design choice here, because we need to ask ourselves, what should the agent remember from time to time that we interact, and what should it forget, so it doesn't start sidetracking and suddenly become more and more in a shape where we don't benefit from it. So we need to have some decisions around memory and how we design it. What information can be used in decisions and what must not be included in future responses. So setting all of this up and also thinking in the architecture we make so that we use the memory in the right way is for sure a new discipline that we need to work with when we design and work with agents, because the memory affects both autonomy and also risks. All of this is what we also did with our little bike that we're using in our company right now. So we asked ourselves some of these questions as well. What is the role? How do we want to place the control as little as possible to start with? And then we have opened up as we learn and as we get better at being clear in what we want it to do and what it is we mean when we ask it questions. So design choices must be deliberate choices all through the life cycle here. How all of this fits together. So the strategic context sets the direction, the tactical structures the collaboration, and then the operational context enables actions, because that's where we give the access to what our agent needs to work with. And all of this hangs together so that we can connect all of it with autonomy and action and also the control into what it is we are doing. So it's time to do a little prompting. And the way it goes is that we have prepared a prompt that we encourage you to copy it and then use whatever AI assistant you use and copy the prompt in and get it going, because it's put up in a way where it will take you through 3 steps to try and come up with an idea about a useful AI agent in your context. So the purpose here is to end up with 5 to 6 sentences that describes a use case that could be relevant for you. Jesper, talk a little bit about one of the important topics. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before I talk about security, I just want to use 30 seconds to see where we ended up with our small task here. So I asked our AI agent to document how it set this up. And it also over in the AI share channel, you can see here 50 minutes ago, it came with a summary in Danish and also came up with some links for articles that might be relevant. Hopefully new links. It might be that I have to look into this and tweak it a little bit. It also looked into our current tools. We have built some tools to search the web, some secure tools. It documented it in a Google document because it also has a tool to create documents like this. If we wanted to continue working with it, for example, it has made a small documentation here about how it's set up this small research agent. And we're also focusing on security because security is something we all have to think about when we set this up. It's easy to make it secure when we are chatting with ChatGPT or Copilot, but now we have a totally different environment to take into account. So the first one could be skills. So these days you can download your skills from open source repository. If I have a new skill, for example, that looks good, I'll just download it. It could have hidden scripts inside, and it could look into your environment, take your passwords, and ship it to another server out in the internet. Really be careful with that. Skills and agents, they have privileges to execute code, and you cannot always control what it is doing. Many of these skills that are open source, they have vulnerabilities. We are building our own skills. We have tools that can help us with that. We are trying to keep this as secure as possible. But I think we could even do more to make it even more secure, because there are emerging vulnerabilities and also emerging risks out there, because the people trying to capture our AI is also using AI, of course, and they are also becoming more and more effective. And prompt injection is also something we have to consider. Whenever an agent reads external content, like emails, and also like websites. So if you make a research agent that search websites, you have to be careful that these websites is not unfriendly and try to capture your AI. So it is something we have to think into our research agents, that they look into this content and override any malicious intent. This has to be built into the tool. Whenever you have untrusted input, you have to set up some tools to ensure that it is not challenging your system. One good way to do that is to create a secure isolation of your agent. Put it in a separate server. We are running it on a virtual server. It has only access to documents that we allow it specifically to look into. It doesn't have access to the whole Google Drive, for example, because it can do things. It can create things and it can change things. It's still a new employee. We haven't entirely onboarded yet. Wouldn't you say that, Heidi?
Exactly.
So we're keeping it in a secure environment. And that is also what we have to think when we build this into teams and we are introducing new agents. We have to build it secure, and innovation and good ideas must never come before proper isolation. So we have to really think about security. And we also have some regulation that helps us with that. Isn't it true, Heidi?
Yeah, we do. And it can sound a little bit dry to end on this note, but let me try and maybe encourage a little bit also why is this worth paying attention to? Because in the EU, we have what we call the AI Act that is rolled out. I'm sure a lot of us have experienced like with GDPR when that became something we had to do. And it was for many quite a huge cumbersome thing we had to align to. This is a little bit different because we're in the beginning. So this is not something that's put onto a lot of AI systems that are already out there. It's emerging and evolving together with the new future. And the whole point in all of this is to make sure that we know the risks of the systems and that we document when we need to and so on. The purpose of this that has been set up from the EU is actually to put humans at the center, to have common rules of the whole AI game, and then also to be a catalyst for innovation. So not just to kill it all, but actually give some possibilities for that. And then to work with a risk-based approach. And this is something that's good for all of us, also when we just hear what Jesper's just talking about here, to really think about what is it that we have at hand, what is the risk. The AI Act is built up with a risk pyramid, and I will just briefly give you a little insights into the 4 levels. Some of it is critical risk, it's a no-go. It's when it comes to manipulating with our feelings, with our behaviors as humans. When it comes to social scoring, who's allowed and who's not based on whatever gender or whatever it could be, to use biometrics, face recognition and so on is most places not allowed either. So we have really where it becomes manipulative and where I think a lot of us can easily say, yeah, this is a no-go. It is a no-go in the EU as it is for now. So that's just to have that awareness. Where it becomes very interesting, I think, when we're talking about especially all the possibilities with AI agents now, is to look a little bit into the high risk level. What is that all about? Because this is moving at the moment, and I think with the possibilities we have now, it becomes even more worth paying attention to, because we identify high risk if it's got something to do with critical infrastructure. You could say education if it means who's allowed to pass and not, evaluations of that, and the same when it comes about HR, and it could be around employment as well. So you could say most of the use that we do right now with AI is not classified as high risk. But the whole point here is, how do you determine that? You need to be able to answer what you're doing is high risk or not. So a good question you could ask yourself is, does the system influence important decisions about people? Is it about hiring or firing decisions, access to loans or credits, admission or granting in education, medical decisions, access to public benefits? And you could ask AI to come up with more examples of what you should ask yourself depending on the solution you have at hand. So if you can answer yes to any of this, you should consider whether it is a high risk under the AI Act. And if it is, there are some requirements. Some technical documentation, some governance around the data and the quality, things that we quite often are used to also taking into concern when we're building big software systems. Logging everything, and also the control I talked about earlier. Where do we put in the human oversight so that we're in the loop and perhaps leading all of that? So the goal is to ensure traceability, accountability, and the ability to audit the system. And that is good practice. So you could say, consider some of this, even if what you're doing is not high risk, start building it into your design. With the time spent, just want to mention limited risks is chatbots, and when we generate images and writing assistants, the requirements are that you should tell that you're using AI. Minimal risks, there are no requirements, so it's if you use it to filtering, a spam filter, for example, or the music that you see that suggested to you is probably AI, but it's in an okay level. it's time to say thank you for your time and your interactions as well. It's really nice that you wanted to spend some time with us here, and hopefully we got you a little bit of maybe some thoughts to take on with you for the rest of the day.
We talk about humans in the loop, but in the future, we are trying, in our company at least, to make humans in the lead. And that requires something from us, new ways to think, but also new ways to act as humans.
Good point.
Thanks.
So thanks a lot for participating and have a good day.
Yeah, good to see you all.